Hi, thanks for taking some time to watch this short video as part of our Refuel series. The goal of this video and the discussion time that will hopefully follow afterwards, and even the content of the Refuel book is simply to get you thinking and talking with others about your own relationship with God. We'll be looking at some of the issues that keep us spiritually distracted and leave us empty, and then we'll look at some ways in which we might live refueled, which will result in a deeper connection with God. Not too long ago, I had a very interesting conversation with my teenage son, Cody. And although it was probably a fairly normal parent-child exchange, it created this aha moment for me, and it served as the inspiration behind the title of this little book called Refuel. Cody and I were standing around his car a few weeks after he got his driver's license. This is it. It's very sweet, a 1990 Buick LeSabre. And who doesn't love maroon? Now, I realize it's not the ideal car for a 16-year-old boy, but it's definitely the ideal car for parents who value safety. Now, this thing's the tank, and I mean that in the best sense of the word because it's a free tank, all right? He got it from his great-grandmother, a hand-me-down, and I've only had to tell him once that it may not be the coolest car in the world, but it's free and it's a lot faster than his bicycle. And I love that he's tried to add a little flavor to it with some unique bumper stickers, and I've even suggested to him that if he added a few more particular stickers, it would make his car even cooler. Yeah, for some reason he keeps taking these off. Anyway, soon after Cody got his license, we were talking about how 13 miles per gallon meant that he'd need to fill up a little more frequently than he anticipated. And I understood his pain, but I still used it as an opportunity for a fatherly lecture on the danger of running out of gas and the damage that it could cause his car. And of course, not being mechanical, I have no idea if what I said was true, but I do know it can't be good to run a gas tank dry. Plus, I didn't want him to run out of gas because I've seen all those scary movies where the driver has to hitchhike in the middle of a deserted area, and you know what can happen. Basically, I wanted him to understand that when you're running on empty, you drive with an unnecessary fear. And on the other hand, when you're topped off, when you've got plenty of gas in the tank, you drive through life with confidence. And that principle also applies to us spiritually. And I know a lot of people who they live their life with this unnecessary fear and emptiness. Their stories and memories and consequences of living on empty they're painful. And when given a choice, most people would rather go through life with this sense of confidence and fullness and live the way God intended rather than live on empty. What about you? How would you describe your spiritual life? Are you running on empty, or do you live it full? See, most people who have a relationship with God, they seem to want a fullness of life. They want a deeper connection with God, and yet many would describe their relationship in negative terms. There's an admission of emptiness, poor and infrequent connections with God, and they settle for a powerless life. And I hate to hear people talk about their spiritual emptiness because I can empathize with their pain. For the first several years as a follower of Jesus, I wanted more depth and intimacy and connection with God, but I just felt empty and powerless. I felt this way even though it seemed like I was doing everything right. I had repented of the way that I'd been living. I begged God for forgiveness. I went to church every week. I listened and tried to apply what I heard, but I just never felt like I was a good enough Christian. And when I compared myself to others, I just didn't feel as spiritual, and this comparison would always leave me so empty. And actually, the more I was around church and other Christians, the more I felt like I didn't do all this Jesus stuff very well. I mean, everyone else seems so happy, so full, so faithful, so vibrant, so perfect, and I felt so inconsistent, so empty. With the car analogy, I always thought that my spiritual life was more like Cody's car. And I was under the impression that other Christians, they had much nicer spiritual cars. And their cars were always on full, and they were always so kind and polite. Whoa! Have you ever felt like the spiritual failure when you compared yourself to others? Like you're just not as good? Have you ever felt like you really want to be close to God, but you're just not sure if it's ever going to be possible for you? I mean, you want to live a full life inspired and led by God's Spirit, but you just can't seem to pull it all together like everyone else. Well, if that describes you, please know that you're not alone. Actually, my bet is that you're part of the majority. And it may be the silent majority, but churches are full of people who feel empty because of comparison. And if transparency and authenticity were higher values within church cultures, I'm guessing you'd hear a lot more people feeling like you do. Well, here's a lesson that I've learned, and I just pass it on to you. Anytime I compare, I lose. I lose and I feel empty. See, when we compare ourselves to others, we're really comparing everything we know about ourselves, which is all of our weaknesses and our failures and our sins and our inadequacies, and we then compare them to what we think we know about others. But the truth is, we don't really know. We think we know, we assume we know, but we really don't know what's going on with others. If you could lift the hood and really look into someone else's inner world, I guarantee you'd see more struggle, you'd see more inconsistency, maybe a little hypocrisy, and definitely some emptiness. Now, I've met too many people who, from a distance, they look like they had it all together, only to discover that up close, they're fellow strugglers. Actually, the Christians I respect the most, they're the ones that they're aware of their own brokenness and their emptiness, and I admire those who invite other people into their life to help them live the full life that God offers. They're transparent with their emptiness and they're ambitious in their desire to connect with God. They want a friendship with God, one that is natural and intimate, a real faith that is constantly refueled. And that's what I want desperately for my life, and that's what I want for you too. And that type of relationship with God is possible. You don't have to go through your day feeling empty. You can be full. You can be constantly refueled, but it won't happen if you're comparing yourself to others and trying to live up to their standards. As you talk about this with others, I beg you to be honest. Open yourself up and go deeper than mere surface talk. Make a commitment to be real and share your struggles, reveal your emptiness, and then rely on the community of other people to help you. And every time you meet together to discuss these videos or the Refuel book, I want you to spend some time looking at the depth and challenge of just one verse. One verse from the book of Ephesians. One Bible passage over 3 weeks worth of video. Because I want you to memorize this verse so you can reflect on it for the rest of your life. It's in Ephesians 3:19. May you experience the love of Christ. Though it is so great you will never fully understand it, then you will be filled with the fullness of life and power that comes from God. This is an incredible challenge, to be filled with the fullness of life and power that comes from God. Think about that, to be filled with the fullness of God. For that to happen, it requires that I've got to be emptied of the fullness of Doug. I need to be emptied of myself, and I need to be emptied of comparison. That's the essence of being refueled. It's less of me and more of God. And as we close, I want to challenge you to stop comparing yourself. Stop looking at others and instead start looking more closely at Jesus. Hebrews 12 says to fix our eyes on Jesus, to fix our eyes on the one who is the author and perfecter of our faith. And for me, when I focus on Jesus, I am less tempted to look sideways at other people and then feel empty in the shadow of comparison. Comparison leads to emptiness. And when you talk with others about this, please drop your mask, take a risk, open up, and share where you feel like a spiritual failure. Talk about what distracts you from focusing on Jesus. And maybe comparison isn't your issue, and if it's not, congratulations. But what is it that keeps you from focusing on Jesus? Talk about that. Seek conversation that's more than casual, and really listen to others with your heart without feeling the pressure to try to fix them with easy answers. My hope is that you'll watch this video and the 2 that follow and then share them with some friends. Then get together and talk. And that might happen informally over coffee, or it could happen more formally in the context of a small group that you're already committed to. It doesn't matter. And obviously what you choose to do with your discussion time is up to you, but I want to highlight a few options. First, you could simply discuss this video and answer the questions on the website. Second, you could go to the website and download the Bible study that goes with this first video and then do that together. Or third, you can merely share what you're learning as you read through Refuel and answer some of the questions at the end of each chapter in the back of the book. There's a lot of flexibility and it's totally up to you. I'm so excited to hear what happens from your discussion time, and I look forward to seeing you next week.